Listen to this episode if you want my exact framework that helps people get to the point of daily consistent sales in their product based business. I'm going to give you the 4-step model of exactly what I teach my clients and the framework that I really go by in order to get people to that point of having a community, seeing sales flow in through their website every single day, and really building a thriving business with sustainability at the core. Today, we're going to talk about my seamless sales system, or my PPPP model. It's the 4P model. And what we're really talking about today is from the very foundation of your brand all the way up to making a profit. And so I'm really going to bring you through a good umbrella view of everything that we have here. This is what you need to do if you're struggling to get traction, if you're feeling like your marketing is just kind of landing a little flat, you're really struggling to have sales flowing through daily. You might be able to get some sales within your launches, but you're not able to get daily sales from strangers every single day. You just kind of feels like your marketing is falling a little flat. That is what we are fixing here today. You want to build this business with freedom at the foundation, as well as daily consistent sales flowing on through. I'm so excited to dive into this with you. If you're new here, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to say, hello, my name is Madison Page. I am a business growth specialist, and I teach people how to build ride or die communities around their brand so they can stand out and sell out their products online. I put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday, so make sure that you are following along. Only 48% of you guys that listen actively are actually following the podcast. So make sure that you hit the subscribe, the follow, whichever platform you are on, so you can be notified when every episode goes live. You know I love giving you the raw and real and genuine frameworks of what is going on and what it takes to grow your overall business. So what this really takes is you have to start at the beginning. No matter where you're at in business, if you haven't yet hit those consistent, natural daily sales, you have to start from step 1. This isn't something that you can start from step 2, step 3, step 4. You have to at least make sure that you have step 1 solidified. Most of my clients, I can just do a check of step 1 in the first week, maybe 2 weeks. We will be elevating some of it. And then we kind of move right in to step 2. Step 1 is something that 90% of business owners skip over because it's the foundations. It is the foundational elements. It's the baseline, and it doesn't actually feel fun, sexy, or productive at the beginning of your business. A lot of people want to jump right to creating the social media profile, creating the website, creating the packaging, but you can't do any of those things until you have step 1 concrete and solidified. So we have to start there. No matter what client of mine comes into me, I look at these step 1. Even if they're already making $1 million, I at least check off the list that they have these pieces really solidified, because without it, you're gonna really struggle to grow in a big way. We have to start from ground zero to ensure that you're building a house on a solid foundation. We've all heard that saying, you don't wanna build a house on a cracked foundation. And if you skip over this step just because it doesn't feel very fun, or it feels a little foundational, or it feels like, it's good enough, the ones that you have, you're actually going to really struggle in step 2, 3, and 4 and beyond. Step 1 helps you build better marketing, helps you build better websites. And step 1 is pillars. The first P is pillars, which is basically the foundational element of your brand. This is where we create the overall foundations to stand out. The reason so many people are struggling with industry saturation is that they actually are jumping over step 1, jumping over the actual pillars of their brand. They want to create candles. Great. Let's start posting content about creating candles. You want to have a new jewelry line? Great. Let's start creating content about your jewelry. But we never actually solidify what makes you stand out within your industry. You never actually put kind of your stake in the ground within your industry to kind of become your own industry. If you do step 1 really well, you're kind of in this industry of one. So this includes looking at your ideal customer, looking at your differentiator, looking at your branding, looking at the values behind your brand and what you really stand for. All of those things are going to build on top of each other to ensure that you have a really good foundation of what the overall avatar, purpose, message is behind your brand. So often people skip this just because they're like, people will buy my candles just because they're great. But honestly, this is where you separate yourself from building and just trying to sell a product to actually building a brand. The reason a lot of people struggle on social media is because they don't have a differentiator. They don't know their ideal customer well enough. They don't actually understand what their brand values are in order to know how to create content. When you have your pillars really solidified and you know exactly who you're selling to, exactly why they would want to buy, exactly the overall message that you're trying to share, and the values of which you are going to share that, your content gets easy. Like, it is so incredibly easy to create content once you have those things because you have so many ideas. This is where your content ideas come from. This is where the ease of growth comes from. This is where the community that you're going to try to build later on actually is stemmed from, because we need to know who we're attracting and why that they would want to be there before we can actually start building anything. So if I were to have a completely brand new business idea, I have so many product-based business ideas. If I were to sit down and be like, I'm going to turn one of these into a business, this is the first step that I would do. What is the differentiator? Who is that going to sell to? And what is the overall brand that I want to have with this in mind? What is the visuals? What is the message? What are the values that this brand is going to share? And that is what pillars is all about. Without this, you'll fall flat in your messaging. You will feel like you're speaking to a void. You'll feel like you're creating all of this content that's kind of generalized because you're just creating it. You don't really know what to say too specifically, but because it's so general, because you're like, well, how the heck am I supposed to sell this product? It actually never lands. It never actually creates kind of that obsessed factor around your brand. Your marketing, you are going to be trying to attract everybody. So you're actually going to end up attracting nobody. And people will feel like your business is just a little vague. Like, they won't really know what it is to really make people feel overly connected. There's just going to lack this overall connection and understanding that, oh yeah, this brand is for me. They'll never have that like initial magnetism. When we look at presence, we really want to look at what is the like demographic of business that you have. What is the style? What is the messaging that you're using? And who is your business at the core? Once you have that, it makes everything else a lot easier, because once we move into step 2, which is presence, then we are just trying to communicate what your pillars are. Once we move into step 2, presence, which is building your online presence and getting people interested in your brand, this is all about creating kind of an ecosystem and a feeling around being in touch with your brand. Once you have the major objective of step 1, which is uncovering the major message and foundational pillars behind your brand, step 2 gets to be a lot easier, because then it's just communicating it at the end of the day. This is building a home that magnetizes the right people that those foundations are naturally going to attract. So this includes building up your profile setup to have increased follower conversions. It's attracting the right people. It's creating feed content to communicate the proper message and magnetize people to you. Have content pillars that we're doing consistently to get people feeling really connected with your overall brand. It's ensuring the messaging is the same throughout all of your ecosystem, whether that's your website, your email, your socials, your packaging. This is where we create cohesion and communication of what we decided on step 1. Things need to be cohesive because people need to feel like when they come in contact with your brand, it needs to be curated. It needs to be like oddly familiar everywhere they go, because they're seeing this marketing in a bunch of different areas, whether it's your website, your emails, your texting, your stories, your profile, whatever it is. We need people to subconsciously, kind of just like oddly familiarly, feel connected to your brand overall. And so how we do that is really working on mastering this presence of things, as well as setting up systems within your presence that are going to help you in the sales system process. So your profile setup is really big. We're going to look at your pinned posts. We're going to look at your highlights. We're going to look at your bio and make sure that those 3 things are set up to communicate the proper message, that are really building on top of that major message around your brand, as well as creating this ecosystem and this feeling around it. So when we look at presence, presence. This is going to be all about social media, websites, things like that. It's going to be about the things that you curate online and making them all feel cohesive and communicating the right message. This is where we will tackle content. You'll learn the 7 types of content, all of that, because when we look at presence, you have to master how are we getting this message that we just decided on out to the right people for them to really understand and kind of buy in, whether it's buying into the movement that you're creating, buying into the message that you have, the differentiator that you have. How can we really set the scene that when people come in contact with your brand, they're ready, they're hooked? And that all comes from setup, content, and website, and how we really have all of that set up. The major objective that we have here is we're starting to play with feed content within the pillars that we decided on and the proper messaging in order to get there. You hear a consistency in what I'm saying, and it's messaging. Messaging is, I would say, 80% of marketing. What messaging is it's all about the words that you're using to communicate what the purpose is behind your brand. And brands with really incredible messaging are going to withstand everything else. They're going to see that growth quicker. They're going to see that disruption a lot easier, because messaging is how we are communicating value. It's how people really are figuring out what your business is all about. So now that you have these pillars, you understand what that communicated message really has to be, which is step 1. A lot of people don't actually have that what their message really even is. That is something we do so often, is actually just come up with your jewelry brand, with your clothing brand, with your candles, with your invention, whatever it is. We need to come up with, what is the foundation? What is the message? What is the story that is behind your brand? In presence, it's all about now, how are we packaging that and creating a vehicle to get that story out there? Finding really great hooks on your reels, finding a really great kind of major scripture statement in your bio, finding really great ways on your presence to actually communicate that super easily and super clearly, really in under 10-ish words. We have to be able to communicate what that major purpose is, the major story is behind your brand really clearly, really plainly, and really easily. This is where we start to build that buy-in. It's where we start to align to those right people. It's where we ensure that your content is actually going out to those right people, hitting more strangers, and building you an audience that is going to absolutely love your brand. Which brings us to number 3 is people. People is all about building community. People is going to be really building that ride or die community. You hear me say this a lot. This is the core of what I teach. Yes, you can have an incredible presence. Yes, you can understand your branding, but if you can't build community, community is what builds longevity. It's the biggest asset that you will ever have. Community will allow you to really have security within your business. It helps you build through like uncertain times. Community is where you build obsession. We look at different brands out there that have incredible communities, and they are the ones that consistently withstand whatever it is that is out there. There are so many examples of businesses that have crushed the community building game, and there's also a lot of businesses that are not doing it well. It's actually something that we're seeing in general in corporate companies, that they are hiring community managers, online brand community managers, as a full position, because they're seeing it become so incredibly important. Is they are only in charge of how do we get our customers involved in what we do and really build customer loyalty, like really build that brand obsession, so you can disrupt a saturated industry and people really come to you and want to keep on coming back. People that really work on community tend to have really high average order value, really high referral rates, really high customer retention rates, really high markers in creating people that keep on coming back to you, and it allows new people that find you to naturally integrate, and it speeds up the buying process for new people as well, because they come in and they see your community going and they're like, oh my gosh, I need to be a part of this. I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do the dang thing. And so community is all about creating this obsession around your brand. I call it my obsess factor framework, and we're really utilizing Instagram stories to connect deeply. We're really building a home of your community on social media. Now, when I say community, there's a very often this misconception that I'm telling you to start a Facebook group, or that I'm telling you to like have a WhatsApp channel that you're chit-chatting with people, or that you need like a forum. That's not what I'm talking about. You can do it right on your Instagram. It really doesn't change the capacity that you market in. It's just changing the way that you market. It's marketing in a more people first approach, in a more engagement centered approach. This is why some of my clients have some of the highest engagement in their industries, is because we focus on community. You can have 2,500 followers and make $150,000 a year in your business if you have a solid community, because those people are going to come back and it's going to naturally grow for you because they're also referring you to their friends. So what we're looking at here is utilizing Instagram stories to connect deeply, building some community behavior strategies, and really figuring out what builds that overall obsess factor. It's getting your audience involved in your brand. So because we have really solid foundations, we know exactly who we're talking to, we know the message that we're creating, we've really created this like very niche demographic of people that would just like die for our business, that are like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for, because you strategically and intentionally built that at the foundations of your brand. Then we found this vehicle, social media, your feed content, to get that message out there and package it really well so people can clearly and easily see it. Now it's all about getting them involved in your brand. It's all about kind of building them within the movement of what you're trying to do, getting them ready and bought into that overall story, where it's not just like, oh yeah, there's this brand that I really like what they're doing. They're like, there's this brand out there that I know so much about, that I feel super connected to, that I've already purchased from, and that I need to tell you about it as well. It's like this next level. It's almost synonymous with like a hyper engaged social media following, because it's not that you need this external whole other thing to build. It's all about building a marketing strategy with a people first approach, with a collaboration first approach. You aren't utilizing your marketing to talk at people. Right now, if you feel like you're talking into the void, you're like talking at your audience and like nobody's really coming back, it's because we haven't implemented too much community building strategy yet. A common problem that I see within community building is that people are just using their social media as like a forum to get their products out there. Social media has to be thought about as the core and the home of your community, because people aren't on social media to be on a forum or to be sold to all the time. They're on social media to really connect with you, to be inspired, to be educated, and that is where we go within this people-centered approach. The overall kind of objective and action item within people is connecting daily, having strategic, intentional campaigns that are just there in order to nurture, have content that is going out often, that is strictly there just to move people deep into the buying cycle. If you know the buying cycle, it's awareness, interest, desire, action, the AIDA model. Awareness is getting people to just know who you are. Interest is for people to be like, okay, I like what they stand for. Desire is where we're building this deep sense of like guttural intrigue. That is what we do inside of people. Awareness is all about kind of your presence and getting that message out there, but people just need to be aware of it. The interest comes actually from the foundations of your brand and really solidifying that, people being like, wait, no, this is made for me. The desire comes from your people, comes from how can we intrigue these people enough, get them feeling so connected to the brand. We are actually seeing in 2025 community being one of the biggest markers of people that are still seeing momentum and people that are actually seeing a big decrease in sales. As I'm recording this, it's May 1st, tomorrow maybe, it's the end of April as I'm recording this, and people have really seen a decrease in sales in Q1, but the brands that we see that are withstanding a little bit of a dip in basically the change in the market, the change in consumer behavior, have mastered this people-based approach. I had a client in April, had her biggest sales month ever. I had a client that sold out a new launch that she launched last spring, but she also launched again. It was a $25,000 launch. She sold out in an hour or two. I had a client that sold out, who is in PTP, that sold out her collection in, like, she sold half of it in minutes. She released it and half of the inventory was gone. It's not that people aren't buying. It's that we need to create intentional areas to build community in order to get them to still buy. Consumers need community at this point. Consumers care about who they're shopping with. We see this all over the place. People are value centered. People are supporting brands that they feel connected to, that they feel like they want to support, that they feel like they want to kind of buy into their value, to their mission behind their brand. Gone are the days that people don't really care about who they're talking to. Like, of course, if they're just shopping on Amazon, they don't care as much. But if they're looking for a small business, if they're on social media, if they're going to kind of invest in a product, they need to know who they're shopping with. They need to know if it's a higher involvement product, they need to know what are they buying? Can they trust it? Can they trust their brand? And what are they supporting by purchasing with this company? So first we had pillars, which really built what your business is all about. Next, we had presence, which is actually the vehicle to get your brand story out there. Then we had people, which is all about connecting often to really build desire and kind of like guttural intrigue about what is going on in your brand and like, why am I naturally so magnetized and drawn to it? Now, step number 4 is everybody's favorite step is profit. This is where we really sink in with the seamless sales system. This is really where we start to bring in both active and passive sales. Now, active sales are launches, passive sales are sales coming in throughout the day while you sleep, while you eat. Kind of they're just on your website and shopping without you actually giving them a hard call to action. So profit is all about infusing strategies to sell in a very seamless way. We want to have different pieces kind of structured throughout your marketing that allows people to buy even when you aren't on. We don't want you to have to be on social media, on your Instagram stories all day, every day in order to feel like you can make sales. We need to allow for some automation, some systems, some structures that when people find your content, even when you're eating dinner with your family, they can come on here and they have enough systems and automations and tripwires in order to get them to the overall checkout. So this is all about passive sales strategies, launching new products, email marketing, managing promotions and sales, and creating an overall sales and marketing calendar that blend. Now, if you don't really know the difference between active versus passive sales, I had an episode that came out really breaking down the different strategies there a couple of days ago. I believe it was like a week ago while this was coming out. And so we kind of are always flopping between this active versus passive sales. So the profit world is setting up our business to actually make sales. Very few people are doing this on social media. If you are not yet to consistent sales, I would say you probably don't have any passive sales strategies even there. This comes down to how can we constantly have invites throughout, like really understanding how people are shopping, what is the consumer behavior behind your shopper, and how can we kind of capture them when that desire is built. So we have now built awareness, interest, and desire. This is where we get them to take action. And we have action. Action is in and of itself salesy. And so this is where we implant different invites to buy from you throughout your marketing, throughout your systems, in order for when people are interested, when they're activated, when they're seeing this content and they're finding your profile, they're like, holy cow, I'm really in love with this brand. They naturally know the process that they have to go to, and they have like these cute little chutes and ladders to get them right to the checkout. We really look at how we can constantly flop between these both active and passive sales. So if you're really looking to get to this consistent sales mark, you might be like, Maddie, like what? This seems like a whole lot. It really isn't. This is something that we cover within 90 days with a lot of people. This is what it takes in order to build consistent sales. But what it is it's very intentional. You can see here that none of this is like, let's just put it out there and see if it works. It's all about, let's find your audience. Who is it? Let's do data. Let's look at your research and see what actually works here. Let's look at your presence and say, how can we strategically build different places in your marketing in order to make people feel familiar with your brand and really build that vehicle for the overall message. Again, it's strategic. It's coming up with content pillars. It's having a little bit more structure in place in order for you to follow it. The people, again, it's not random. We are using your Instagram stories. We're making things a two-way street. We're utilizing more collaboration. And then the profit is, again, all about intentional sales strategies. Something that you'll find as you grow in business and as you build your entrepreneurial IQ and really start to grow inside of the entrepreneurial world is that things are all very intentional. Things are not really DIY'd, or it's not just like, let's just see how this works. Many of them have a structure and they have intentionality behind it. And that actually takes a lot off of your plate, because it's no longer like, oh, what should I say today? Or like, oh my gosh, how am I going to come up with this? Or like, oh my gosh, I'm out of things to talk about. Everything is structured out. You follow your 5 content pillars a week, you replace those things, you have a rinse and repeat content strategy. So it's actually not even something you think about. A lot of my clients say that their like marketing decision fatigue goes away once they go through this process, because they now have such a structure that it's like, oh, all I have to do is create it. I already know what I'm saying. I already know how I'm going to say it. I already know how to launch. All it is basically repeating it. It's not about like reinventing the wheel or just like putting it out there and seeing what sticks. Once you know the like missing pieces into what you're doing and the proper information, it's all about just implementation. So some major tips that I want to go over with you is you need the foundations to clarify the rest. I already know you're like, Maddie, like tell me about people, tell me about how to build community. And my question to you is, who is your ideal customer? What color nail polish do they have on right now? What did they eat for dinner last night? And if we can't answer those questions, we have to go back to your foundations. My question is, what is your differentiator? What makes you different from everybody else? And if you're talking to me about quality, if you're talking to me about affordability, if you're talking to me about being all natural, those things are no longer differentiators. They are not differentiators. There are two. If I can go on Etsy right now and find more than 5 businesses that have your differentiator, it is not a differentiator. There's too many people out there. What we have to do is we have to really figure out what this foundational pieces are about your business before we can do any of these. And so the foundations are really, really important. If you're trying to skip over it already, you have to go back there. And the next one is community is what builds longevity and makes everything else easier, because these people are already bought in. These people are so connected to your brand. These people absolutely adore you, no matter where you move, where you shake, what other products you want to sell, all of these other pieces within your business. If you pivot, if you, if something goes on in the world, if TikTok gets shut down, those people are going to find you. They're going to hunt you down and they're going to find you because they are obsessed with everything that you've created. The next one is that launches and discounts are not necessary if you actually have the right systems in place. You don't have to depend on discounting your products all the time or having a new collection coming out every couple of weeks all of the time if you have a seamless sales system in place, because going back, we have those passive sales systems in check. You have your content pillars, you have systems in place for things to sell even when you're not selling. This isn't something that you constantly have to do. It's that we set up your passive sales systems. We have these little tripwires, these little chutes and ladders throughout all of your marketing, that all you have to do is consistently stay up to date with your posting, which you're already doing. You're already being consistent on social media. We're just tweaking the actual pillars of what you are, how you are creating and putting a little more structure behind it. And then people will naturally go through your passive sales funnels and buy from you. As long as you have the right content pillars for your audience, as long as we've mastered your messaging, as long as you have the passive sales systems in place, it goes. So it might be a little bit front loaded, where we have to set up your pin posts. We have to set up some tripwires. We have to set up some more kind of passive sales structures within everything that you're doing. But once it's set up, it's there. We're good. We got it. Those automations, the emails, all of that are in place and they are working even when you're not working. Your only job is to make one Instagram post, one feed post, which we already know what it's going to be based on your content pillars, and maybe show up on your stories just sharing what you're doing throughout your day. This is how I say that my clients spend less than 30 minutes a day on their social media. If a reel is taking you 4, 5, 6 hours to make, even an hour, 2 hours to make, it's because you don't actually have the proper foundations in place to really understand and make it really easy for you. Once we have those passive sales systems in place, all you have to do is spend 20, 30 minutes a day on social media, and it allows for these people to find you and move through that. Even in my business, I make one feed post a day, and then I post probably 4 or 5 times on my stories. It takes me less than 30 minutes, and I know every single time I press post that it is either nurturing people, it's growing my audience, or it's getting somebody closer to buying, or it's actually activating people in order to get them to buy. It is a rinse and repeat model that I'm just cycling through all day long. I barely even think about my marketing at this point, and a lot of my clients are in that boat as well, because they are so validated. We know exactly what works, and all we have to do is move it over and over again. So community is what builds longevity and makes everything easier. Your launches and discounts are not necessary if you have the right systems in place, because all you have to do is stick with your rinse and repeat model, getting more of that out there. And last but not least is too many people jump to creating content and launching without actually building community or clarifying those foundations first. If I were to start a new product-based business, or if I had a product-based business already and I wasn't making sales, I would take so much time just focusing on building community. Before I even had a product launched, I would focus on building community around my brand, around my message, around the industry of which am trying to sell my product. So like if you're out there right now and you're like, Maddie, I've been on social media for a couple of months to a couple of years, and I just struggle to gain traction. What do you do within this process? How do I go? Do I jump right to content? Like, do I have to go all the way back? Do I have to start a new profile? You don't have to start a new profile. What you have to do is go back to the foundations, and we can always get more strategized wherever you are in this process. We can always add more strategy. I just did some of these things to a client of mine that is making over $1 million a year selling products in 2024. She made over $1 million. We went back and we added pin posts. We added passive sales strategies. We are refining her content pillars. So this isn't about having to have a new brand. You can do this at any time. You can always, it's never too late to improve the marketing, your sales structure, and just like your branding, everything all in one. If you are still struggling to gain traction, you feel like you're in a saturated industry, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. You have to look at your foundations, your ideal customer, your branding, your differentiator, your values of your brand. Like who is your business at the core? We have to identify, is it enough? Is it specific enough? Is it clear enough? Is it actually different enough than everybody else out there? And we have to really make that really intentional. And then we can talk about the vehicle to actually create that brand story and get it out there. So if you've been struggling, you have to go back to those foundations. Like I said, every client I work with, we go all the way back to those foundations. That is where I would start. Go to the foundations, look at your presence. If you were that demographic, would your social media actually attract you? Is it something that you would be proud of? Is it something that you would be drawn to? Is your content something that you would want to watch? Is your content something that you would find like really appealing to want to stick around, follow along, and to binge? Do you feel like you would feel connection to the brand, or is it just like a little fluffy, a little bit of product focused? Is it just kind of trying to push product in your face? That is some big questions that we want to answer. If this is something that you want support with, this is exactly what I do inside of my program, Product to Profit. These are the 4 steps, the 4 module chapters that we provide content and strategy for. We actually do have a once a year promotion going on right now. I never do any promotions or sales. You know, I don't really sell too much on the podcast, but I do just want to let you know that if you've been binging my podcast and you've been craving some support in this, we have a really big promotion going on. It's called Bloom into Business. It's for people that are really ready to step on in. It's almost $3,000 of value for free. Check out my Instagram at This Is Madison page. You can DM me PTP or Bloom and we can chat about it. I will be posting about it there. Feel free to go reach out. It is a short period of time. We're doing just a quick little promotion in spring, blooming into business, getting people that are really ready to really step into this next level of business, go all in and learn the strategies and the intentionality that it takes. If that's something you're interested in, go check it out. If not, no worries. But I just wanted to alert people because I know a lot of you here might not be on my Instagram and seeing that information there as well. But this is the 4 steps that it takes to get to consistent sales. And I want you to know it gets to be easy. It actually is very simple. You might be saying, Maddie, you're just so simply saying this. Like, this sounds so easy, but in practice, no, it actually is easy. You are finding the foundations of your brand. You are creating a vehicle in order to get it out there consistently. We are building connection with people, and you are putting sales systems in place that might be a little front loaded, but once it's done, it's done. Now, just because it's easy doesn't mean that it's intuitive. Doesn't mean that it's something that everybody knows. We aren't born understanding marketing. We aren't born understanding sales psychology. We aren't born understanding consumer behavior. But once you learn it, everything else gets easier. Once you build that entrepreneurial IQ of how do we sell, how do we really get there, and what it really takes to get people to feel activated and take action, you're done. You got it. And you have sales flowing through with a rinse and repeat content structure, with a seamless sales system where you are just showing up to market 20 to 30 minutes a day, and you have already created systems in place in order to get people moving through that sales system. And then all your responsibility is to stay consistent. But consistency without the strategy and intentionality is never going to work. Now, social media is impacting 72% of purchases in 2025. That means that if you are winging your social media, or you're not really putting a ton of effort into it, or it's always been the bane of your existence, you are missing out on 72% of people that are utilizing social media in order to buy. Social media is hands down the best way to grow your product-based business in 2025. Truly building a community there and really focusing on how you can build freedom within your life is building a community around your social media and figuring out how we can have this system to build. If this is something that you want, if this is something that you look at, you now have this 4-step framework in order to go there. Go all the way back to the foundations, figure out who your brand is at the core, and how can we create that message. It really is all about depth. It's all about how can we build a little bit more depth within your brand, have a value focus, people first approach to your marketing. Again, if you have any questions on this, I am always happy to answer your questions. Would love to do that. We are always talking about the podcast episode in my Small Business Cafe, which is my free podcast community. Feel free to click the link and join there. We will be diving into this topic today. I will be answering anybody's questions that they have inside, and we'll be digging deep into it. The link is in the show notes below. Feel free to join us there. If you have any questions on PTP, feel free to DM me on Instagram. Just DM me Bloom, and I will send you over the details on what our big promotion is that we have going on right now. If you are craving this style of business, that things are working for you to finally step into that next strategized approach, you're ready to be done DIYing, and you really want to understand what all of this intention is, feel free to reach out to me there. Would love to answer. I hope that this was helpful for you, no matter what. I hope that you gathered a little bit of like, oh, okay, this is the model of what I have to do. Now you go back to those pillars: presence, people, and profit. I want that to go through your head in this building process is pillars, presence, people, profit. What stage of that building process are you in? And what is that next step? What are we always building towards? What is the overall action plan? We said this. Pillars is all about identifying your major message. Presence is all about playing with feed content to really build that message and be the vehicle to get that story out there. The people is all about connecting daily and creating collaboration with your audience. And the profit is all about constantly flopping between active and passive sales strategies in order to never depend too heavily on launches or too heavily on discounts in order to make your sales. We have to be able to make passive sales in order to have a business that builds on top of each other, in order to have a business that is sustainable and freedom filled. That is why I teach passive sales strategies for product-based business owners. Many don't, but I do, because I want you to be able to make sales every single day. I am always here. If you have a question, reach out to me on Instagram at thisismadisonpage. Would love to answer your question there. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. Get out there and start building some consistent sales in your business.